Breaking just moments ago, with just 65 days until the election, a new Harris-Walz campaign memo lays out the state of the race for the final weeks ahead. The campaign says it views Vice President Harris and Governor Walz as the, quote, clear underdogs, and they have work to do. The memo notes the campaign invested a surge in donations to fund more than 300 offices and 2,000 staffers in swing states. Tomorrow, Vice President Harris will visit two battlegrounds on Labor Day. First up, Michigan, then off to Pennsylvania, where early voting starts in just, Simone, 15 days. 15 days. And when she's not campaigning, Harris is preparing for her first debate against Donald Trump, set for September 10th. Joining us now, former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. She is now a senior advisor to the Harris-Walz campaign. Good morning, Mayor. Welcome.
Good morning. Great to see you both.
Good morning, Mayor. Good to see you. You know, you are in Georgia and Atlanta. And, you know, honestly, before we get to the campaign news, I mean, 15 days away, this is the general election. We are literally within it. Obviously, this news coming out overnight about the hostages whose bodies were recovered. When you were at the White House, you served as senior advisor to the president and also director of the Office of Public Engagement. I have to imagine that if you were in the White House right now, you would be fielding a lot of calls. And if you could just take our viewers into maybe what White House senior staff are dealing with this morning.
Yeah, you know, I've sat in the White House, Simone, as you know, next to the second gentleman who's been a great advocate for Jewish people across the globe. And so, you know, that in a moment like this, it's all hands on deck. I've been in rooms with Ambassador Susan Rice, with people representing all races, all cultures across the globe. And this hits home. It's very personal for people into the White House, because we know that this White House really represents who we are as people. There are people of all races, all cultures, all backgrounds in the White House. And when people think of the White House, they think of this massive complex, and you know that it's not. It's a very intimate space. And so when there is something heavy on the heart of one, it's something heavy on the heart of all. And I can only imagine that today it's a very heavy day. We saw the parents at the DNC convention. And in so many ways, you know, we've been praying for the hostages, for their families, just as we have the innocent victims in Gaza. So it's heartbreaking. I couldn't help but think about how often my husband stays up at night waiting for our kids to come home when they've gone out. And I can't imagine waiting for months on end for your children to return home and to wake up or to go to bed with this news.
Mayor, you strike a very personal chord in terms of how these events happen and impact families, and we kind of get lost in the politics and the noise and drama, and we forget the human toll that these events take on everybody, and especially the leader of the free world, the president himself, who is now in this very difficult space of balancing the breaking news around the killing of 6 hostages, including an American, and trying to advance the cause of peace in that space, but then also trying to make sure that the next president is not a totalitarian oof who is out here trying to embrace the very thing that we see the fight going on in Gaza and elsewhere around the globe, like Ukraine. You've got the president's going to be coming out this week. He's going to be getting in the campaign this Labor Day. The Politico notes Biden's Labor Day campaign stops reflects his targeted role in the campaign trail in the months ahead. The Harris campaign and his team will deploy him to state where he can tap into his strengths with older white voters in states he won in 2020, including Pennsylvania. The point here is that now the president has another aspect that he can bring to the conversation on the trail that reinforces the bona fides, the foreign policy bona fides of his vice president, who is seeking to be commander in chief. How does that, can you speak a little bit to that balancing act of trying to do the politics while also trying to, deal with the world events around it. And this is something that the vice president will obviously have to address in the course of her campaign.
Certainly, Kamala Harris is the vice president, and she's also a candidate. So that's a very delicate balance. And even when you are looking at who you send out on the trail on your behalf, it's always about strategy. Where do people play best? And I can tell you as a surrogate, the last thing you want to do is to harm a candidate. And I know that is the position that the president feels. He wants to go and say and do the things that will help strengthen her as a candidate. But as my mother often says, you only have to tell the truth once. And the truth is that this White House has been very clear on its position as it relates to any number of world affairs. And whether you agree or disagree with the Biden-Harris administration, you can at least know and go to bed and rest assured that there are people in the White House making sane decisions, that they are getting information from the most competent leaders in national security, that they are being very thoughtful about the decisions that they are making. So I suspect that when the president goes out, he's going to talk about how this administration has delivered to states like Pennsylvania. He's going to talk about the position that this administration has taken on any number of issues facing the globe. And he's going to own those positions while also advocating for the vice president, who has been a leader and has had a seat at the table when all of these discussions have taken place.
Mayor, I just think as you were talking about the split screen between President Biden and Vice President Harris campaigning tomorrow, to your point, folks who have been working diligently on a number of issues as it relates to our foreign policy, but also domestic policy in an earnest way. I think you could disagree with, if people can have disagreements with the pieces of the policy, but I don't think one could argue that the president and vice president are not earnest and sincere in what they're trying to do on behalf of the American people and diplomacy and democracy worldwide. You juxtapose that with Donald Trump, whom I don't think we've heard from this morning on the hostages who were killed, let alone specifically about the one American. But we heard from him a lot yesterday, and I mean, He's posted on Truth Social talking about the vice president lied about working at McDonald's, saying she never worked there, and saying that he thinks she's nuts. This is just unbecoming of a commander-in-chief, to say the least. But also, these are the stakes. This is who's on the other side of this race.
Yeah, and it's pretty frightening, Simone, that this is who we are dealing with once again. This is a man who doesn't take anything seriously, it appears. And even with a morning like this, the gravity of this morning, who knows what tangent he's on this morning. And I would imagine, he can't imagine the vice president having worked at McDonald's, because I would imagine he didn't work at McDonald's. So it just probably doesn't resonate with him that that's what people do every day as young people. But I'll just say, again, we have a choice between two very different candidates. And we've seen how Donald Trump leads. We've seen what he cares about, what he doesn't care about. And as far as we can tell, he only cares about himself. And so as we get into just a few weeks left into this campaign season, it's going to be important that we continue with this excitement. That's great, but we make sure that excitement turns into action, that we remind people about Project 2025 when Donald Trump talks about making IVF free. Well, what about Project 2025 that wants to do away essentially with IVF? So we have to hold him accountable, remind people who he is, and especially in places like Georgia, where we've had very thin margins, less than 12,000 votes deciding an election, reminding people that they have the power to make a difference in November.
Keisha Lance Bottoms, thank you very much. It's very good to see you this morning.